section, let's go ahead and continue with this next section on the reports and the tools that you have available to you. So most of your reports are going to be accessed through this menu, the data transfer menu, and then report download. Now, if you are uploading documents, whether it's a school change report or any other types of files, you would just use the upload option. But since most of our reports are available to you in a download format, that's what you're going to use. So you would choose the academic year that you're interested in looking at, and then you can see a multitude of different reports available to you. Select the report that you want to look at and then hit search. And then you'll see a list of various reports that are populated. And as I mentioned earlier, some reports are just automatically generated, while others are feedback reports, meaning your campus has uploaded some information to us. And as a result of that upload, we then give you these feedback reports to let you know of the transactions you uploaded, which were successful, which were not. In other words, the awarded section or the accepted section, and then the rejected section. So here is just a synopsis of some of the reports available to you. I won't read the entire thing because you do have this PDF available to you. The goal or the hope is that you would actually print that out and use this as a reference if you need to. But these are some of the more commonly used reports, right? The accept reject report is a given. You need to use that each and every week after you report your transactions during the work week, and then come Friday night, we shut the systems down and process all of those transactions that were reported during the week, which means that come Monday morning, you have a fresh roster with fresh information to review. The award status extract, we just kind of went over that briefly, and then I'll show you the kickback reports, what those look like after you've uploaded that information to you, and then that results in the two sets of reports, awarded or accepted and rejected. The Cal Grant C supplement, right? We're going to look at all of these, but so just read the descriptions if that's helpful to you, and keep it handy as a reference. More reports, right? The grant roster is another one that our large campuses are certainly going to use because it lists every little thing about that student, their enrollment status, the eligibility used, what type of Cal Grant awardee they are, A, B, C, if they're independent or dependent, has all of that information on that report. The monthly payment activity report. You as financial aid folks may not always be using this, but somebody in the office, perhaps it's your business office, is using this, and these should be used on a weekly basis and certainly at year end so that you are regularly reconciling your transactions so that when you do come to year end, it's not this massive year-long job. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this first one, the accept reject report. So really, you don't need to do anything with the accepted section. Those are accepted transaction. It's just informational. It's the rejected section that you want to review and understand why the payment attempts were rejected so that you can rectify those. And so you can see the reason codes that these payments were rejected. And then the more common ones that you can see are the EL verification is required. Education level verification must be performed before a spring payment can be posted. So you might be able to post a fall payment without having verified the education level of your student. But if you attempt to report another payment in a following term, it will reject because there's that verification that's required and was never done. No transaction reported for a previous term. Remember, every transaction has to be satisfied with a renewable transaction code, be it a leave of absence or a payment code. And we want to do it in order, right? So fall, winter, spring, summer. or whichever terms are applicable to your particular campus. Another school already reported a payment, right? So that student was already paid at a different campus for that term. They might be attending your campus now, but perhaps previous term they were at a different campus, or a duplicate transaction, right? We can only post one payment per term for every student. So if we attempt to do that a second time, it's going to reject. And these are the feedback reports after you upload your information using that award status extract, which is actually a tool. And so we'll show you where to find that tool within WebGrants. But when you use that tool and you're asking us to basically tell you which of all these Social Securities or DREAM Act IDs that you have submitted to us are actually awarded and which are not. And again, this is used so that you can then inform yourselves who on your campus has a Cal Grant award, so that you can then do that school change and claim them to your roster. So again, non-awarded is just letting you know that student, didn't get a Cal Grant award, but your awarded report allows you to then move into the roster after claiming them to your roster through a school change and start dispersing. The Cal Grant C supplement report is just really the only column we're interested in on this report. It's this last column. We want to know if a student has submitted their C supplement form. For those who might be newer and not overly familiar with how Cal Grant C works, CSEC preliminarily offers a student a Cal Grant C if they meet the eligibility, meaning they haven't been awarded another type of a Cal Grant through a different award cycle, no E1, E2. They haven't gotten a Cal Grant A or B, in other words. So we later in the school year will process any student who has indicated that they are going to be attending a school that offers a vocational technical program. And those are our community colleges as well as proprietary trade schools. So if a student has listed any one of those types of campuses, a proprietary trade school or a community college that offers Cal Grant C programs on their financial aid application, and they've not already been awarded one of those other awards through an E1, an E2, or an E3 award cycle, or even a traditional competitive Cal Grant A or B, that student could be processed for Cal Grant C. And so in order for us to solidify that award, students receive this preliminary award notification through their Web Grants for Students saying, hey, student, it looks like you have a preliminary Cal Grant C. Please log into your Web Grants for Students portal so that you can confirm the type of vocational technical program that you are enrolled in. And it's that form that students file or submit on their student portals that tell us whether or not they are truly pointed to the right program, that they are actually part of a vocational or technical career training education type program. So if it's a no, that preliminary award would be withdrawn. And if it's a yes, then that student would have an active Cal Grant C that will allow you to pay. Education level verification. This report tells us which students need to have their education level verified. And so I believe we went over this particular purpose, the purpose of education level verification earlier today, or maybe even yesterday. It all starts to be jumbled together when you've heard these presentations enough times. But this is letting you know which of your students need to have the education level verified. Ideally, as Adrian pointed out, this should be done before we make our first disbursement. In the literal sense, Web Grants will allow you to report a fall payment, even if the verification was not done. So as you can see here, this particular school paid the student, so it says that they're paid, but that verification is still required. And that's because they have not yet done the EL verification. So if this same school were to attempt a payment the following term, it's going to reject, just like we saw on that rejected section of the award, the accepted reject reports. So it's just best practice to verify EL before you actually make the first disbursement. but at some point you do need to verify it before the end of the school year. And so, yeah, just refer to this so that you know which students have that flag on their roster. Once you actually submit your verifications to confirm the education level, you're also going to have an education level accept reject report. So you're starting to see a pattern here. Many of our feedback reports have two sections. It's letting you know of the transactions you reported either in an upload format or through the award extract tool. You let us know at some point what you wanted to have done, and then we give these feedback reports telling you what was able to be changed successfully and then what was not accepted. And so we want to work through the rejected sections typically. And so, yeah, that's really the way you inform yourself about how those EL verifications went through. Another type of verification that we're responsible for is the E2 verification. Adrian mentioned this earlier, but Assembly Bill 840 requires that 10% of new and renewal E2 students are randomly chosen for this verification. So that means that even if you have a student that was paid in year one, and they're renewing in year two, they might still be required, or you as a campus might still be required to verify that they meet E2 transfer entitlement eligibility, which is this, right? That they graduated or the equivalent from a California high school, or if they did not graduate from a California high school, that they were a California resident on their 18th birthday, that they transferred to your campus before the age of 28, and that they came directly from the community college to that bachelor degree granting institution, because E2 awards are only available for our universities. The student had sufficient unmet need, and that there was a community college GPA of 2.4. So you, as an E2 verification school, is going to be verifying all of this data. And so there are transcripts and documents that you can ask of the student to perform this verification. The monthly payment activity report. Adrian touched on this briefly, but in a different capacity. So this focuses more on the individual facets of this actual application. Adrian called this the bank account, and that's basically what this is. It's like a bank statement, because you show money in and money out, starting with our fall advance. And he also told us earlier, not every campus is eligible for a fall advance. If you're a newer campus, or if you didn't pass an audit, you might not be eligible for a fall advance. But most campuses are. So that's the very first transaction you're typically going to see at the top of every school year. And then you see all the weekly reconciled transactions. Remember, I said that we shut down web grants come Friday night at 5 p.m. or shortly thereafter. And that's when we start processing all the transactions that you have reported in web grants on your rosters. So that come Monday, you could pull up this monthly activity report and see all of your reconciled transactions from the previous week. So you can see that these are weekly transactions. And once that school runs out of money, they're going to go into the negative. They run into the advanced money is what I should say. So that fall advance has been exhausted, and so we will then kick in additional money to meet that negative balance, to then bring your Cal Grant funds to a zero balance. And from that point forward, once you've exhausted your fall advance money, every transaction or every week that you reconcile transactions, you're going to see that our state controller's office has then kicked in a supplemental payment to then bring the negative balance to a zero. Now, when you submit those school change uploads, remember we talked about both the upload screen and then the download screen. So when you want to claim students to your roster because they didn't list your college on their financial aid application, you can do that through the school change upload. And then when you do that, the following day, or might be the following week. Some of these reports are weekly, some are daily. You're then going to see the status, right? Again, a rejected section, letting you know that these particular records were not able to be changed for whatever the reason is. And you can read what the reasons are right on that report. So that's super helpful as well, so that you can then rectify those transactions. The school overlap report, this is not one that's used very often, but it could help you. So let me introduce you to it if you're not already familiar with it. This lets you know students who were eligible, initially eligible for both the Cal Grant A and B. Remember, we said that that's a thing, right? If a student has a really high GPA and a low income, that's how students are eligible for both a Cal Grant A or B. But then it's the college segment that determines which of those awards a student will get. And I mentioned this earlier, CSUs have selected for that award to default to the Cal Grant B because it's most financially beneficial to the student. Whereas at the UCs, the Cal Grant A is going to be most beneficial. And the reason is because Cal Grant A pays the tuition and fees portion of that award, which is the bulk of that award in year one, whereas with a Cal Grant B, it works a little bit differently. So a freshman with a Cal Grant B is only going to receive the access portion of the award, $1,648. But the tuition and fees portion plus access will be paid out in years 2, 3, and 4, or as sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So this might be helpful if a student says, hey, I have this Cal Grant B at your CSU and I don't have the money to cover the tuition and fees. Typically, the state university grant will fill this in because Cal Grant B is for our lower income students. So typically that student would be eligible for the state university grant to cover the tuition and fees in year one. Not every campus does that though, or will offer that, or not every student is eligible for the SUG. So this report might be helpful for you to say, hey, well, this student was eligible for the Cal Grant A. We're going to flip that student's award so that she can have full coverage of tuition and fees in year one. There might be other uses for this report, but again, play with it and see how this might help you in your practices. And we mentioned tools, right? So not only do you have reports to inform you, there are various tools that you have access to. So the tools menu in WebGrants is where you're going to find the roster data file compare. It is a tool that allows you to pull up two different sets of rosters, usually a week apart, one roster from last week, one roster as an example from this week, where you're comparing what the changes were between last week and this week. And it's going to show you which students might have dropped, which awards were changed, or which students are brand newly awarded in that new week. So that might be a way to help you get in there and pay those new students, the newly awarded students. All of your grant roster templates are going to be in the tools menu as well. And then information on how to customize your roster. So all of the templates that you use, whether it's an EL template for education level verification to format your data, whether it's the grant roster template, there are other templates in there, but all of the templates are going to be in your tools menu. And there it is again, the tools menu. So you can see these various templates available to you, the reconciliation template, the grant roster template, EL verification. So depending on your school system and what version of Windows you might be using, you can pull the different templates. But the templates are great because it allows you to filter the results of those reports, right? You actually format that and you can filter them and organize your data. So other tools and templates you have access to, we looked at a couple of those, the grant roster template, recon template, education level verification. And again, you're formatting data either that's been downloaded in a feedback report, or it's something that you are formatting yourselves so that this information is digestible, filterable, and you can organize it neatly. Oh, and I like this little message down here. If you don't see the template you need in a ready-made format, most of these are macro enabled, which means that they've got a little mini program running behind the scenes that's going to format that for you and facilitate getting that into the right columns. But if there isn't a ready-made template that's macro enabled for you, you can actually find the file specs for formatting your data onto a blank Excel document. You might want to reach out to your IT support for help on doing that because they can get a little technical. All right, let's move into the last section. I believe this is the last section of today's presentation. And this is on your AB 540, Assembly Bill 540 reports and tools. So Assembly Bill 540 is the legislation that allows our DREAM Act applicants to pay the same in-state tuition that their cohorts, their other fellow students who are FAFSA filers receive. So these are the screens that you have available to you under the DREAM Act section. The two newest screens are right here, right? So in years past, the AB 540 affidavit was a separate document that was collected by each campus. But now the DREAM Act application has that affidavit built in. So if you haven't yet looked at the application or navigated through it, I'd encourage you to do so because you can actually see that as a student finishes all of their sections and the parent sections are completed, then the very last section is for the student to electronically submit their affidavit. It's attached to the application. And so you can then pull these reports or pull the individual affidavit for a specific student and see if you need to verify that they did actually meet the AB 540 criteria, which states that that student was in the California school system for at least 3 years and that they have 3 years of attainment of high school credits. So this doesn't delve into the AB 540 criteria, but that was just giving you a snippet of what AB 540 does. So you're going to see all this information on those affidavits. So you can see when you pull up the screen, the affidavit screen, when you enter that student's data, and you have various ways to search, it will pull up a list of the students who have submitted their affidavits. And then you can click the eye icon to open up that specific record and see more of the details. Or you can actually print that information as well. There's also the AB 540 affidavit screen, which allows you to then, oh, this is the same screen. It allows you to print it right there. And so you can see how the student filled out their affidavit. The student, again, is a sample student, but the student has indicated that they do not have a U visa and they've indicated how they met the AB 540 criteria. So this first section under graduation and transfer requirements, one of these 3 fields has to say yes. And in this last section, they have to meet 3 years of physical attendance as well. So one of those 3 sections would need to say yes in order for the student to actually be AB 540 eligible. And then the affidavit report can be printed in, this is the text format version. So it's just a bunch of data on a text file, but it's the same information that we looked at for this individual student, but this is your entire roster of AB 540 students. And then what you can also do is have that print out in a CSV, which stands for comma separated values format. Basically, this puts it right into Excel for you. So this is probably the more useful format because it's already in Excel, and that's going to allow you to add your filters across the headers and sort the data as you need. Okay, just a reminder to keep asking those questions in Q&A. I hope yeah, it looks like my colleagues are keeping up with the Q&A box. So thank you to my entire team for answering your questions in real time. And again, we already sent that PDF yesterday. If you didn't get us, shoot us another email. Make sure that you can receive our emails. We're not going to be blocked with your school's